Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 328. Drive without direction becomes drift. How often are we told that we must have goals in life and in the workplace, and they must be SMART, even though people insist on using the meaningless version of the acronym, and they must stretch us beyond our comfort zone. Yeah, like that's going to motivate me. Not. I certainly hear all of that in many of the clients I work with, and to add insult to injury, they are given, yes, given rather than co-created, given 16 of them that aren't even within their control. I mean, that's absolute poppycock. How can we truly assess, measure and reward people for things that are not in their control? And then people wonder why many of us aren't inspired by the idea of goal setting. Ready for another layer of insult on the injury? When we as introverts don't get all excitable about the dished out goals, we're then often considered as lacking drive, lacking ambition, and even lacking motivation. None of that is automatically true, of course, just because we're introverted, but that's part of the bias we face on a daily basis. Let me be really clear. Introverts do not lack drive. We're just not loud or overly excitable about it, especially with those who don't understand our temperament. And if we're confidently being ourselves, owning our introversion and not feeling the pressure to conform or pretend, we are highly unlikely to engage in the performative aspects of goal setting and achievement just to tick a box. We typically prefer to keep our heads down, do great work, in the hope that we get recognised for it. But we rarely do, of course. The recognition is all too often reserved for those who merrily wave their achievements in front of people's faces. So time for some tough love. We as introverts need to get better at articulating our drive in a way that is authentic but not diminished. Now, if you've been in my world for any length of time, you know me well enough to know that I'm not one for fixed in stone, audacious type goals that stress me out, and I'm certainly not up for hustling until my eyes bleed. But that doesn't mean that I'm meandering aimlessly through life and business. Or does it? A bit of a rude awakening recently might suggest that I am, in fact, erring on the side of aimless, but just the right side at the moment. So I really hope I've caught it in time. As you might have deduced already, in this episode I'm taking the uncomfortable steps of exploring what happens when our drive is not sufficiently corralled. If you listened to my last episode, this is a classic case of you getting some personal level of me coupled with a taster of the tender, sacred level of me. From here on in, though, I'll warn you when it's getting to the really vulnerable bits. I think that's only fair. So you're not left wondering what the dickens is she going on about, let me offer a bit of context. It won't have escaped you that I'm on a mission, and it's a pretty tough one too. I often describe Flourishing Introverts as the project that I'll keep doing until I turn my toes up, both because it matters that much and because it's not the work of mere moments. But I haven't been moving things forward as quickly or as robustly as I had hoped, so I knew there was something either missing or something that I'd overlooked. You see, it wasn't for the lack of activity or energy, so I realised I had to delve deeper. And that's when a few people very dear to me helped me to distinguish between direction and drift. Flourishing Introverts doesn't exist simply to preach to the converted, although I'm delighted if you're still here and either an advocate or an introvert who is on side already. It exists to disrupt the bias that makes life unnecessarily difficult for we introverts, and it's everywhere. Families, education, the workplace, business and society. We are literally engulfed by it, and I'm not even exaggerating, but I've decided that's not acceptable. It never was, actually, and it has incensed me for over a decade. But it's only in the last few years that I've been courageous enough, quietly gutsy I call it, to stand up against the people and systems that perpetuate it, because allowing it or challenging it is a choice we all make every day. Given why Flourishing Introverts exists, my aspirations and intentions for my mission are highly unlikely to happen without a plan, without passion, and without persistence. These are three components of my drive that I've identified as being critical to my success and to the success of my mission. They become even more essential when I'm navigating the tougher parts of this particular journey. And for me, a plan without action is wishful thinking, procrastination in a fancy hat, if you like. Passion without purpose is simply unnecessary and unbearable noise. And persistence without focus is distracted busyness. So the big question at this stage is, are we legitimately busy or conveniently drifting? And aligned to that, there is a certain tension which recently surfaced when I was talking with my accountability buddies. And this tension is both a little chilling and galling. Drift can look suspiciously like being productive, responsibly and diligently getting on with things. Except the things keeping us busy are not the right or appropriate things. They may also include more courses, more reading, more talking things through, when they are more often than not simply adding volume to the drift. Here's what I think we all need to be a little bit mindful of, though. I've had clients and fellow introverts share that they're not always bothered if other people condemn them for their drift. They're usually following a thread that they're not yet ready to share publicly or let go of. We'll keep working away, kidding ourselves that we're pursuing our desired outcomes and hoping that it all comes together in the end. Tender, sacred alert. I promised I would. What I've just mentioned, the hoping it all comes together, describes where I've been for rather too long, and it hurts both my heart and my pride to share that with you. And yet, that's exactly what I chose to do. So my question earlier on about am I drifting, the answer appears to be yes, I have been. I can't yet admit to the aimlessly bit, as I've had the big picture that I'm staying aligned with. The passion I have is still there in spades, but the plan needs to be more robust, coupled with timely action. But there has been procrastination bolstered by my old friend perfectionism, and you've heard me admit before to being a recovering perfectionist. Well, now I have something extra to aid my recovery, and it's courtesy of Dr. Anne-Laure Lecumpf, a neuroscientist at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience at King's College London. She is the author of Tiny Experiments, a book which has made a huge difference to the way I am now approaching life, and which I mentioned in episode 320. This time she introduced me to the idea of sustainable excellence rather than perfectionism, which I like a whole lot more and am now getting on board with. I was actually listening to the audio version of her book, and I felt my shoulders relaxing noticeably at the idea of sustainable excellence. I think I even let out a little sigh of relief. I think this is partly because it aligns so beautifully with my focus on enabling my clients to make sustainable changes in their lives, and partly because perfectionism is generally so blooming unnecessary. This is especially true when we live by the principle of everything is an experiment, and the results provide useful data. So whatever it is, being perfect is a bit of a waste of time and energy. I mean, that's really freeing, right? Now, whilst it may feel safer to allow myself to drift, and whilst I may even be able to defend it, is drifting actually taking me to where I need or want to be? The answer, my dear listeners, is a resounding no. But here's something I discovered recently thanks to a friend of mine. Ever heard of rejection sensitivity dysphoria? It's the extreme, overwhelming emotional pain triggered for some, especially those who are neurodivergent, when they experience actual or even perceived rejection, criticism, or failure. I know that whilst I don't have RSD, I do have a fear of rejection when it comes to my Flourishing Introverts work and my mission. I don't have that in life in general, though. Weird, isn't it? I can only assume it's because this work matters so much to me, as in many ways it's intensely personal. I know that I also give myself a hard time and even feel a little jealous when those less experienced or less qualified than me are moving faster. And guess what? It's because they're not drifting. So I'm also full of admiration for them. Just proves that you can hold those two paradoxical things at the same time. And this admiration for them spurs me on to refocus on my own direction, to keep going and to haul myself out of drifting. I'm now wondering just how much of my tender sharing has resonated with you. Not exactly, of course, we're all on our own paths, but in some parallel kind of way, maybe. I encourage you to reflect on a couple of things at this point. Firstly, how easy was it for you to witness me sharing from a tender, sacred level? I think this is useful to reflect on, as it may begin to reveal your own readiness to share from that level. And secondly, if you were to take a long, hard look at your journey, as if observing from a bird's eye view, a helicopter or a drone, where have you been, or are you right now drifting? And how is that serving you? Whilst I encourage you to come back to those questions, I'll also leave a respectful pause for you right now. So let's bring this up through the personal into the public levels to make sure there are some tangible actions we can take when we notice ourselves succumbing to the drift. As usual, these few are from my own journey of discovery, so take what works for you, tweak as needed, or simply use them as inspiration to find your own workarounds. Number 1, the first thing to do is be really honest with yourself. Is the overthinking, the navel-gazing, in my case, the not quite ready, or whatever justification you've convinced yourself about really necessary? If not, get out of the drift by refocusing on your direction again. Number 2, share your direction and intentions with someone who will support, encourage, and inspire you. There's plenty of research out there that confirms we can stay more committed when we're not keeping it to ourselves. Privacy is one thing, but fear-driven secrecy is altogether another. And finally, number 3, spend time in environments that support your direction by staying out of those that send you or suck you into the drift. This is about defending your boundaries so you can repel the unwanted advice and avoid the noisy environments. And do this with real intention. So those 3 are my starting point, and I'm sure more will emerge as I experience more of my own journey, and as they do, I'll share them with you. Let me finish with a final encouraging word or two, because having experienced the pull of the drift, I know just how tempting it can be to stay there. It takes no real effort. In fact, it can be quite comfortable, but here's the kicker. It delivers no real results or fulfillment either. I recently spent time with my accountability buddies. We do this every 6 weeks or so. It always starts with a yummy brunch, somewhere like the end of the peer-in deal, so we can reconnect, chew the cud, and rediscover the psychological safety that will be necessary for the rest of our work together. This time we were able to be so honest about where we'd stalled, the excuses we'd been making to ourselves, and the help we really wanted from each other. Asking for help is often not easy, but it makes such a difference when we do ask. And all of this without getting defensive, hiding or masking any feelings or shame, and without giving a sanitized version of events. The result was truly remarkable because by responding thoughtfully to the respectful challenges we received, we did the required, if sometimes uncomfortable, work, and we all got what we needed. I now have a clear plan, a set of accountability commitments, and a renewed focus on my mission. I am inspired, excited, and ready for what's ahead. And that is what is available to us all when we choose to complement our drive with direction rather than drift. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.